Welcome back, guys. So this is going to be my first video after my week and a half break from the after the Critical Role Day Zero builds, because those take a lot of work, and I needed a break. Obviously, you had a couple of other videos to tide you over with my last week Wednesdays and my box opening, but I kind of took this break and something had been nagging at me for a while, so this video is going to be a little different. Um, I'm just kind of going to ramble a little bit, so if that's not your thing, then see you in the next one. But I kind of wanted to talk about my personal philosophy when it comes to how I approach Universus, because it's something I've been talking about with some of my locals, and uh, it's actually worked really well with for one of them as like good advice. So I thought maybe I'd share it on here, maybe put it in the Hermit school somewhere, and see if it helps anyone else, because I think obviously it's my philosophy of how I approach the game, so of course I'm gonna like it. But I think that even more experienced players could kind of take a page from it if it's not something they already follow. So maybe just bear with me in my little bit of self-indulgence here. Just something I wanted to talk about and get other people's opinions on. Um, so for those of you who, for some reason, don't know, my name's Cameron. I'm the UVS Hermit. I've been playing this game for almost 8 years now. Um, I taught myself how to play uh, after I gave up Yu-Gi-Oh! And it was really interesting to learn how to play this game. I've talked about it before, teaching myself how to play, asking a lot of questions to UVS games, then Jasco games, uh, asking all sorts of questions and learning that way. So I've like to think that I've got a good ground up feel for the game. Um, unfortunately I didn't have anyone to teach me like with a demo and stuff like that. So I kind of just spent a lot of my time practicing and thinking about the game on my own. Um, which, to be fair, let's be honest, not a good thing to do. You always want to have like other people to play with and bounce ideas off of. And I kind of had that to a degree. I had a couple of people that I played with, um, and love them to death. They just weren't as driven as I was for like competitive, because I've always had that drive. I've got that competitive blood in me. But um, that's where I kind of want what I kind of want to talk about of how I better myself as a player, because a lot of people can think, okay, this isn't a game like Yu-Gi-Oh or man, that's the only other game I've really played seriously. But unlike other games, we do have a defined like a meta, but because of the variance and the level of like differentiation even in similar decks that we have in this game, it's hard to pin down. Like you could say, hey, these are characters you need to watch out for, but they may not necessarily be like the best because everything has a way to beat it. And one of the reasons I wanted to make this video is, as of recording this last night, we had a brand new person show up at our locals at Primal Nerds, asking to learn how to play. He had bought a Critical Role starter deck, and one of the questions he asked was, who's the best character? And I told him, it's not that kind of game. Pure and simple. Because you could have characters like Recovery Girl or Pony or Godzilla, and they're really, really powerful. But it's also like the pilot. It's the person behind the character. Like, a brand new player couldn't take Kevin Broberg's Hanji Zoe Four Eyes list and do well. So, obviously, like that. But we are a very character-driven game, and we're a very player-driven game. And something that I've been seeing with some of the locals that I've been cultivating and teaching how to play the game a little bit more over the past year has... I'm sorry, I don't have a script for this. I'm not good at these types of videos. It is going to be kind of a rambly mess, so please if you make it to the end, comment down below and say that you made it, because I appreciate it. But one of my locals, who I will not name, because I don't know if they want me naming them here, has been playing for roughly about a year, and he's a very competitive player. He's got that drive, he's got that dog in him. He wants to constantly do better and improve. So he goes after more meta threat characters. You know, your Godzillas, well, I wouldn't call Sung Jin a meta threat, but he puts in the work for characters like that, and it's been awesome to see him grow as a player. Um, and then I've got another local who is also, wanting to get more into the competitive space, and he reminds me a lot of me, a little bit slower, not on the uptake, but there's definitely a learning curve. It's not let me jump into the biggest, baddest deck. It's let me see if I can make this character work. Let me see if I can make this character work. And there's a lot of learning there. So two completely different thought process of the game, but also both are good. There's lots of ways to approach this game, and that's what makes this game great. I myself have a world of philosophical difference than some of the other big name creators that I will not name because I don't have beef, but sometimes I'll listen to their videos and go, what the hell are you talking about? But then I have to sit back and remember not everyone thinks like I do. And they have their own philosophies when it comes to how they approach the game. But I was talking to one of these locals, and he said that his first regional that he went to last year, he wished he had been more prepared. Because he said, quote, I didn't really know what I was doing. And, I mean, your first major event, you're not going to know what the hell you're doing. But then we went to nationals this year, and he said he felt way better with how he did because he felt like he knew more about the game, knew more about himself as a player, and that's really, really good. But it got me thinking about how I approach the game because after 8 years, it's kind of just sewn into me at this point. It's muscle memory. I think about this game way more than any person should. It is my only real hobby. I do it for YouTube. Um, so it's kind of just constantly going off in my head. If I'm at work, I have like a mostly manual labor job. It's kind of half and half. But if I'm doing the manual labor stuff, I'm just running lines in my head of how to run certain decks. And this game is a really good way, or a really good way to get people into this game is like, hey, this license is in, or hey, this character is in. And it's easy to get sucked into that trap of this is my favorite character, so that's all I'm going to play. Don't get me wrong, just like Chris Smith has his, Keyleth love, as soon as Jamie Sue comes out in Street Fighter 6, that's going to be the only character I'm playing. But I think, at least how I approach the game is I love the deck building puzzle that this game has, and I want to build everybody. And at first, it was just the creativity of I want to show off how creative I can be. I want to see what characters I can play, what I can play with this deck, what I can play with this character, how can I make this work. And in my little Chaos Goblin brain, that's really all it was. But what I've developed it into is like when people ask, what's the best deck? What's the best play style? We don't really have the rock, paper, scissors of this deck, X beats Y beats Z, Z beats X. We do definitely have like control players. We have aggro players. We have wall players. And they build those decks accordingly. But it's important to understand how those decks work. And when my local said, I wish I'd been more prepared for this regional, I told him, hey, look, that was your first regional. We went to Nats. I prepared for I think 8 biggest characters in the format. I researched all of the top 8s from Oceania Nats and EU Nats and all the big regionals. I tallied up like the 8 or 10 best characters that I could prepare for. I played 2. In my 9 rounds over a weekend, I played 2 characters that I had prepped for. I played a pony, who I lost to because it was doing something different than any other pony I'd played against. Congratulations, Connor, on making top 8 at US Nats and getting into Worlds. That was amazing. And then I played a Godzilla, who I beat because I was prepped for it. Sorry, Snuggy. But it was real fun playing you. But every other match I played was against something completely random that I hadn't prepared for. And I still managed to come in the top third of nationals. I think out of like 300 and something people, I came in like 90th. My phone's dead. I'm too lazy to look it up right now. But I came in the top 30% of nationals. And having played match after match against characters that I had never prepared against because I never expected to see them. And I think one of the reasons I was able to not only win the majority of my matches, but also turn losing matches into draws, because for those who didn't watch the video, I played an Elder Toguro deck that focused on a lot of check hacking and the Death Casino combined firepower package. Brian Garza, who eventually went to Worlds and competed, was playing a Sir Night-Eye deck. First of all, who the hell plays Sir Night-Eye? Someone like me. Second of all, I had no business winning that match, and I didn't. But I was able to make it a draw. Even though, by all rights, he should have had me in a 2-0 dead to rights. He hard countered me every step of the way. Now, why was I able to make that hard fought match a draw, and why was I able to win against characters I hadn't prepared for? Is it because I'm a really good player? I would say no, but a lot of my locals, if they're watching this, are screaming at me right now because they keep telling me to stop negging myself, so I will say I'm a good player. But I think what gave me the edge in those matches wasn't because I had prepared for that character, but because I play so many off-the-wall characters and I try to experiment with so many characters, I think it gave me an information edge. So for newer players, or even existing players who are like, how do I want to better myself as a player? I will tell you there's only so much information you can glean playing against a character, but there's much more you can glean from playing as a character. So I've been encouraging, especially my hyper-competitive local, play something outside your comfort zone. He plays mainly aggro six-handers, because that's his comfort zone. It's what he loves to do, it's what he knows best. I told him, play a defensive seven-hander, or even an aggro seven-hander, or play a defensive five-hander, someone that's just going to sit there and tank. Because the more you play those characters, the more you know not only what they want to do, but how they want to do it. A 7-hand size character plays way different than a 5-hand size character, obviously, for a multitude of reasons. But you can get more comfortable in that fact of, okay, I'm a 5-hander now. I don't have to block everything. So you can learn, okay, what attacks do I feel comfortable taking? And what attacks would I know I need to block? What is my directive for building or attack lines, poke turns, stuff like that. Once you fully immerse yourself in that mindset, then if you're playing against that character, you can say, okay, if this is what I have at my disposal for attacks, which ones do I know they won't block or likely won't want to block because they think they can take that? And how can you sculpt that information to your advantage? I always encourage them, play something outside your comfort zone. There's a reason that, and if this is coming out Tuesday as of time of recording, you'll see in tomorrow's last week Wednesday, I played the starter deck Beauregard at my local at Primal, and I went undefeated. Now that's not to say I'm a really great player and I can play anything. Granted, I can play anything. I love playing anything. But it's that getting in that mindset of what does this character want to do? What does this play style want to do? And because I have so much practice with such random things, I feel like it's deepened my appreciation and knowledge base for the game that I can better analyze the game state and the matchups to basically give me an information advantage rather than if my rival is just sitting here saying, okay, I know what I want to do, but I don't know what you want to do. And that can be really tricky. Uh, I think it's in Sun Tzu's Art of War. It says, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. But if you know yourself but not your enemy, for every victory you will also suffer a defeat. And then if you know neither yourself nor your enemy, you will surely succumb in every battle. But a lot of, especially like newer players, they will pick one character and stick with it. Absolutely. Get your feet under you. That's the best way to start. Just go steady with one character and master that character as much as possible so that you can get the feel of the game. But I would say once you're comfortable with that character, or at the very least comfortable with the game, keep that as like your main deck, but then like branch out. Play the random 7-hander or 5-hander. Play characters whose playstyles are completely antithetical to what you are comfortable with, because that will broaden your understanding of what that character and that playstyle wants to do, and you can then know how to counter it more effectively with what you want to do. You can shape how you think about the game differently. Um, it's just basically making bricks to build a better building. But if you know exactly what your character wants to do, and only what your character wants to do, you're kind of starting on the back foot in every match. Because then if you only know what you want to do, but your rival also knows what you want to do, they kind of have you beat there. Because they already know as soon as your character's revealed, they're starting to think of how they're going to counter you, as opposed to you thinking, what do they even want to do? And saying it out loud, it sounds very obvious to me, but maybe it's just the way I'm wired. But I don't see a lot of content creators, especially some of us how to play people, talking about things like this, about how to approach the game mentally and philosophically, and how that can improve your performance as a player. At my first ever event, it was a world championship because you just showed up to Worlds with a deck and you got to play for free, because Jasco was crazy back then. I went 4-4, which for my very first event ever, I was happy with. I was happy to break even. The very next year, I went, and I don't remember how many matches we played. I think it was either 8 or 9, and I was either 5-3 or 5-4. No, I was either 5-3 or 6-3, something like that. I was one win away from making top cut. And I think not only was that because Chris Smith built an amazing deck that he allowed me to borrow, because this idiot forgot his deck back in Oklahoma, and Worlds was in Vegas. So not only did Chris Smith let me borrow an awesome deck, but I think my ability to understand what my opponents wanted to do for the most part, because I tried to play a new character every week. I tried to understand so much. Anytime a new set drops, one of the reasons I build the Day Zero is not only for newer players trying to get a handle on how their favorite character plays, but it's also for me to deepen my understanding of these characters, and then I try to build more serious competitive versions once the set releases, because I want to understand how all of the little gears work, how everything turns. And with my locals, I share with them all of my research, all of my findings, but there's only so much you can learn from someone telling you. Excuse me. There's only so much you can learn from, uh, someone telling you what to expect. Uh, like I've got another local who travels a lot, doesn't get down to the shop very often. So he'll just walk in and say, okay, what decks do I need to worry about? I could tell you, but you don't know. Like, I can't sit here and break down like a 57-page PowerPoint for you. There's only so much you can do without that deeper understanding. And that's why I say, like, playing what you're comfortable with, playing like your one character, your main, can kind of be a trap sometimes. Because yes, you are very good at being that character, but as long as someone else knows what to expect, you're kind of already fighting an uphill battle. So to at least level the playing field, you should know what to expect against most of the field, even if it's not all of it, because let's face it, with as many characters as we have in this game, you're not going to be able to play every character and get the best understanding for it. So that's not what I'm trying to say. But there's enough variance between the characters of, oh, this is a block of characters who kind of want to do this, or this is like your 6 hand size aggro, these are your 7 hand size control characters. And even though they're all the same style, they may go about it in different ways. Some control decks might be like a foundation control, trying to control your stage, flip your foundation, stun you out. Other types of control, like my favorite, try to control you via control checks. So different styles of control. So it's not like, oh, that's a 7 hand size control character. Okay, but that's a 7 hand size control character, and they play the game completely differently. So the level of variance in this game does make it a little hard for newer players to kind of adapt to a more competitive environment, and I know that's why we're supposed to have like lower power locals and like store scrambles. But let's face it, as fun as this game is to play kitchen table and play for fun, you're usually going to want to upgrade into more competitive events to better yourself at, if nothing else, to prove that you are improving as a player. And that can be really tough and daunting when there's so much variance and so much variety in this game. So that's why I keep telling my locals, in order to be good, you have to be okay with being bad. So if you want to be a good player, I think you need to play bad characters. Bad. Air quotes, TM, asterisk. But like I said, I played a starter deck character and was able to win. Those characters are designed to be very beginner friendly, not competitive. But I was able to make it work because I was able to think about it differently. So a lot of these like tier lists and rankings who are like, oh, these are trash tier characters, or coaster tier, or prove me wrong tier. Those are characters I gravitate towards because I'm like, okay, that means if someone really puts in the work, they can catch everyone off guard and do pretty well. So I need to know what those characters do, because I don't want to be surprised. I don't want to sit down in, a winning in. I win this one match and I get top cut, or I get to go to day 2. I don't want to sit down from a character that everyone else wrote off and just had like an amazing run, and now I'm next on the chopping block. I don't want to do that. I want to have as much knowledge and information as possible so I can make the best and most informed decisions every step of the way. And this is something I've had to learn over years of playing, so obviously this isn't something that you learn in like a couple weeks. But experiment, learn, study, figure out how characters work. Like, not just what works in this character, but why does this character work at what they're doing? What's their game plan? How do they go about it? And even if you think that character is bad, that could just be because they don't play the way you like to play. So you automatically just shy away from it. Like my local who only plays 6 hand size aggro, I don't think he would ever pick up a 5-hand character. We just started kind of breaking him in on 7-handers, but he's still very timid about that. He doesn't like how defensive he has to play, because it's not his style. It's not naturally where his brain goes. But I think if you force yourself to learn, force yourself to be uncomfortable with these cards in order to learn more about them, I think it will develop those lines in your brain so that when you sit down across from one of these decks that might be pretty good, just not your style, so you think it's bad, you'll understand more about it and how it plays, and it's not like, oh, I wrote that off as a bad character and I got washed 2-0 because I didn't know what it was doing. You never want to sit in a situation like that. You never want to lose because you just didn't know what was going on. You want to lose because, oh, you don't want to lose, but if you lose, you want it to because it was a tight knockdown, drag out 3-game match that almost went to time. Those are some of the best matches. Like, I went to time and tied Brian Garza's Night Eye at Nationals. Mainly because I knew that was the only way I wasn't going to take a loss, was if I could force him into a tie. But it was a buzzer beater, and I had no right tying that man. He should have had me dead to rights. But I feel that because I had played Night Eye before, when Night Eye was first released, I loved Night Eye. I loved the mill strategy, and I loved what he was doing. So I thought, okay, I know what Night Eye wants to do. In the first 2 turns, I've seen maybe 15 cards in your deck. Now I know how you're going about it. I know what you want to do. I know how you're going to do it. I know what I need to do to stop it, or how to counter it. That's why I think, like, when people play the same deck over and over, they start losing more. And they think, man, this deck was so good, 3 weeks ago. I haven't really changed it much, but this deck I was undefeated at locals, and now I can't, if I do win, I feel like it's a struggle. Well, it's not because your deck's bad, and it's not because you're a bad player. It's because now your locals know what you want to do and how you go about doing it. They have that information now. So people like me, who play a new deck every week, I know what my locals want to do. For the most part. There is another local who's kind of pseudo-adopted my parts of my philosophy and is branching out into learning new characters. And just experimenting. Even if it's just experimenting, hey, let's see what this character can do. Absolutely, go for it. Don't be afraid to be bad, and don't be afraid to lose, because we learn 100% more from our losses than we learn from our victories. When we win, we learn that we won. When we lose, we learn what we can do better and how we can improve ourselves. So that's how I try to look at it. And I used to be, I'll admit, I still kind of am a sore loser. I don't like to lose, especially if I feel like I'm playing well. I don't like to lose, and sometimes this game, luck just isn't on your side and you have a bad run. So I've been trying to learn not to take my losses so seriously, not to take them so personally, which has been a big personal growth struggle for me. But that is something that some people can feel, because I've definitely had that. Prepping for Nationals 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago in the Ojiro 2, not Ojiro 2, the Tokoyami 1 and Kirishima 2 meta. When that was the big US Nationals, 50% of the field was those characters. I was playing with some newer players. They've been playing for about a year. And they played Kirishima 2. Sorry, I've got hairs growing out and tickling my ear. But they were playing the 2 best characters in the format, Kirishima 2 and Tokoyami 1. I was playing, what is her name? Toru Hagakure 1. Invisible Girl, the one who could give it any attack flash. And at first, at locals, they struggled against me. Mainly because I knew what Tokoyami 1 and Kirishima 2 wanted to do. I knew exactly what attacks I could flash to disrupt them, and I knew exactly what attacks I needed to let go so that I can further my defense later on. Within 3 weeks, I was not winning a single game at Nationals. I was getting 2-0'd every match, every week, because they learned what I wanted to do. They learned how I was doing it, and they formed a game plan. Fast forward to Nationals that year. I got 1 win away from top 8. And it was only because my last match was against a Kirishima 2 instead of a Tokoyami 1. I traded my 80-20 positive matchup for a 20-80 negative matchup. So if I'd rolled a Tokoyami 1 instead of a Kirishima 2, I would have made top 8. Fortunately, it was the Kirishima 2. Sometimes these things happen. But the people I went with got a little upset because they rolled in with two of the best characters in the game at the time, in the meta, and got smacked around. So how was I, someone that couldn't beat them anymore, able to almost make top 8? Well, I knew what my opponents wanted to do. My opponents, however, didn't know what I wanted to do. There wasn't a lot of variation back then because of the limited number of sets that were available. I knew what they wanted to do and how they were going to do it. They had no idea what I wanted to do or how I was going about it. Whereas with Kirishima and Tokoyami, everyone knew what they wanted to do. So I was starting with an advantage in the information war. They weren't. So that's not to say that just playing an off-the-wall non-meta deck will win or even give you that much of an advantage, because again, you still have to be a good player. You still have to know what you're wanting to do and how you're going to do it. But I'm saying that even if you're a newer player, having that informational advantage can help level the playing field, because it might take your opponent a few turns to get wise to what you're trying to do. And then that might give you a bit more of an advantage in the early game. Or it might not. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of variance to this game, but this is just how I approach it, how I think about the game, and why I think it makes me a good player. There, for my locals who got this far, I said it. I think I'm a good player. You can shut up about it now. But I think that's where my advantage lies. I think about the game a lot. I'm always thinking of new ways to innovate, and I'm always experimenting with new players and new card combinations. And I think that that kind of helps open up a greater understanding to the game as a whole, and a wider understanding of a broader spectrum of characters can help you prepare for more unique interactions. I didn't expect to pull Levi 2 or Sir Night Eye or Bakugo 4 at Nationals. But I did what I did. I did as well as I could, and I think that having my knowledge of playing as those characters helped me not just get absolutely bodied by those characters. I'm pretty sure every loss, except for Connor, the pony player, every loss that I played was a loss in 3 games. I don't believe I ever got 2-0'd at Nationals. And I was able to put up that kind of a fight, I believe, because of the information advantage that I had. It gave me a good foothold, at least in game 1, the early part of the match, to where might have taken my rival a game to understand what I was doing, and by then I had a bit of a foothold in. So you can really level the playing field just by having knowledge that your rival might not have. So that's why I don't like to focus like, oh, these are like the top 5 characters in the meta, so these are the ones I'm going to focus on. These are the ones I'm going to play as or play against. Because you're completely... You know how they say every character is someone's favorite? If that person puts a whole lot of time into their favorite character, they could absolutely body good players with meta decks if that good player with a meta deck has no idea what's going on across the table. It absolutely can happen. Talk to Kevin Broberg or Tim Keefe. They'll tell you, yeah, I'm sure they've lost to someone who was just playing something out there because it just caught them off guard, and it took them a little, one step too long to figure out what was going on. I'm sure it's happened to everybody. It's happened to me before. But yeah, I don't really know. I'm not trying to preach or say like my way is the best way. I'm just thinking this is how I consider myself improving as a player, and I think it could help other people. Uh, it could just help broaden your understanding of the game. It could help, maybe unlock some way of thinking that you weren't used to yet. Like, oh, okay, so this is why I'm always losing to this type of character because I didn't understand this. Or I've played against XYZ before and struggled, but now that I've played as XYZ, I see better now how they're trying to go about it, so I know what to stop. Um, yeah, I've rambled for over a half hour now, and I still don't know if I've made any solid point whatsoever. So I'm going to wrap it. I thank you guys if you've made it this far for indulging me and my insanity. Again, please comment down below if you found any of this helpful, especially if you're a newer player. Let me know if something like this kind of helps. I will be putting it in the Hermit School just so it doesn't get lost with the deluge of other content that I make. But yeah, don't be afraid to play outside your comfort zone and learn something new. Play a completely different random character, because I promise you, you will develop new strategies and new ways of thinking about the game if you do so. And the greater your understanding, the deeper your knowledge pool, the better you'll become as, especially a competitive player. You'll have more information, more weapons to deal with anything you come across, and you'll just be better prepared. So yeah, as we head into, well, we just had the first regionals of US 2025 in Denver last weekend. So as we continue into this competitive 2025 season, trying to grind points for Worlds, uh, hopefully this helps some of you on your journey and helps you think about the game differently and learn and grow as players, because that's the whole point of the channel, man. It's to help people learn, help people grow, help people develop, and ultimately better the UVS community as a whole by helping everyone grow at least a little bit and become better players. So that's all I've got. I'm tired, and my allergies are acting up from all the wind. So thank you for making it this far. Like the video, please, if you found this content useful. Comment down below what you think. Am I just completely wrong and just a freak? Was this information and kind of philosophy helpful to you? And consider subscribing and sticking around if you haven't already. I could use all the support I can get. And I am also now temporary co-host of the Universus podcast on Sundays over on Twitch for twitch.tv/UKversus. So come check us out on Sunday afternoons, evenings. It's around 4 p.m. Central Time. I think 9 p.m. UK time, something like that. But yeah, I'm gonna get out of here and head to bed. So until next time, take care, guys.